So in the last episode, we were able to list our various blog posts right here. And also we made these cards clickable. So when you click, you can go to more details about that specific blog post. So now in this episode, I want us to work on this page where we get the data of a specific blog post and we are able to show the content right here. So for us to do that, we will need to export two functions. The first one is getStaticPaths and the other one is getStaticPlops. Now we need getStaticPaths to get all the paths for all the pages so that getStaticPlops can be able to fetch data for all those pages at build time. And when we come to the documentation right here, you'll see that if a page has a dynamic routes and uses getStaticPlops, it needs to define a list of paths to be statically generated. So getStaticPlops makes use of those paths to generate the pages at build time. So when you export a function called getStaticPaths from the page that uses dynamic routes, Next.js will statically pre-render all the paths specified by getStaticPaths. And we need to create a function like this one. And you only make use of getStaticPaths when you are using getStaticPlops, and you cannot use it with the get server-side props. And the reason is because get server-side props usually renders the page at request time. So when you visit the page, that is the time when it will know the path, that is the time when it will fetch the data. But with getStaticPlops, we need to know all the paths even before we deploy our application. So let's go ahead and copy this function. So what this does, it only returns an array of paths. So this is an array, and inside this array we have this params object, and for this particular object we will be having our unique identifier, which is the shrug, and we'll also be having its value right here. Okay, so this is what we need to return right here. So for us to know the value of the shrug, we'll need to fetch data from Contentful. So we can go ahead and create a client in our shrug.js right here. So I'll import create client, and then we'll make use of this one right here to connect to Contentful. So I'll go ahead and copy that and I'll paste it out here. So I'll say connect to Contentful. And now right here I can paste that connection right here because we'll need to make use of it in this particular function and also in our getStaticPlops function. So let's go ahead and fetch the data right here. So how we will fetch the data, we'll just call client.getEntries and then content type blog. So I'll just copy this line and I'll go ahead and paste it here. And then we need to generate the paths from our response. So this is how we will do it. Right here I'll say const paths will be equal to, we will make use of the map method so that we return an array of objects like this one. So we'll be having multiple objects depending on the number of blog posts that we have. In this case we have 2 blog posts, so we'll be having 2 objects like this. So we'll be having objects like these ones, and each of the object will be having a shrug and a specific value for a specific blog post. So we need to make use of the map method so that we can return an array of such objects. So right here I'll say response dot items dot map, and we will get an item at a time, and we will be able to return something right here. We will return an object, and this object is this one right here actually. So I'll just go ahead and copy this params object and paste it here. Okay, I kind of messed up. We should return it directly. So I remove this and remove that. So we return params object like this. Now we have the value of the shrug from the item. So we can now remove this one and include item dot fields dot shrug. So this will return an array of params with the shrug for each of the blog posts. So we can go ahead and log these paths right here. So I'll say console.log of paths. And then another thing that we need to do is to set fallback here to false for now. Later on we'll change it. So this means that if a path does not exist, then it will return a 404 page. So far so good. We are able to like fetch the data, generate the paths right here, and we can now set the paths, replace these paths with this one, because this will return an array like this. Okay, it will like be a similar thing. So right here, instead of using paths this way, I can just return paths. Okay, so I'll save that, and this will throw an error because the moment you make use of getStaticPaths, you must make use of getStaticProps as well. And let's see if we actually like get an error. So if I come here and try to refresh, you will see getStaticPaths was added without getStaticProps. So let's go ahead and create our getStaticProps function. And what I'll do, I'll just copy this one. So I'll copy that and I'll come right here and paste it here. And we already like have the client at the top here, so I will remove this one, and then we fetch the data again now. And now here we will make use of the params that we generate. Okay, so these params that we are generating, we can be able to access it here like these params, and now we'll be able to have access to the srug for each of the pages dynamically. So right here we can be able to filter the data using the srug, and this is how you can do it. So with these get entries, you can be able to filter the data that you are receiving using the field. So right here I can say fields, and you can say the field that you want to filter the data using. So right now we want to use the srug because it's our unique identifier, and we also have its value in our params. The value will be params dot srug. So let me save to auto format. So this is like the syntax. We have the content type, and then we are filtering the data using the srug like this. Okay, so this is contentful syntax now. And then what we will return right here is res.items, and what this will return is that it will return an array still, but it will now return only one item because this srug is a unique identifier. So it will only return one item, and we can access that one item using the square brackets and access the first item, which will be now our blog post. Okay, and now right here, instead of posts, it will return only one post. And now at the top here, we can be able to access the post via props, and we can log it to the console. So let's go ahead and console.log our post. So let's see what we have first. See if we can log the paths to the console, and also whether we can log the post to the console, and then we will do a quick recap so that hopefully it makes more sense. So I'll go ahead and open the browser, and now we no longer see the error if I refresh. And if I hit F12 to open the console, we should be seeing our post object right here, and you can see we are at Next.js tutorial part 2. Next.js tutorial part 2. When we go to our console, the terminal that is, you'll see that we are able to generate the paths like this. It's params, and then the srug, and then the value of the srug, and then another one, the srug, and then the value of the srug. And what Next.js does is that at build time, it will use these parameters to generate all the pages using these paths. Okay, so what you need to do for you to generate these dynamic pages, you need to make use of getStaticPaths like this, and then you fetch the data and you generate all the paths that you'll need for all the pages, and you return the paths right here. Okay, and once you set the fallback to false here, if the path does not exist and you try to visit it, then it will return 404. And then you make use of getStaticProps to now generate the pages. So you fetch the data for each page, now making use of the paths. So you have access to params, and you can say params.srug or params.id, so that you fetch the data for a specific page, and you return that page via props, so that you can now fill your JSX using the correct data. So yeah, that is it for this particular video, and in the next video we'll go ahead and now work on our JSX so that we can try to display all the content for our blog post. So I'll see you on the next one.